welcome back to my channel. My name is Astrid. I'm the owner and the creator of CoffeeFluttersBtq, where we create cute punch needle designs, we create stickers, totes, and so much more. Thank you so much for being here today. Today we're going to be talking about the basics or the foundation of starting punch needling. So if you've been interested in starting punch needling or learning how to punch needle, this is the perfect video for you. In today's video, we're going to be talking about all the materials that we need in order to start punch needling. I'm going to create a separate video talking about how to punch needle, so it's step-by-step of how to punch needle. However, in today's video, we're going to talk about all the essentials that we need in order to start. So it's very important that you have all the materials gathered together, because there is quite a few materials that you do need in order to start. So it's better to do it step by step, gather everything that you need, and once you have everything that you need, you can then start to punch needling. Thank you so much for being here. So let's begin. So I started punch needling about 8 months ago. So I'm relatively still new to this. However, I feel like I've gained a lot of experience in the last 8 months because I've been punch needling a lot, and I've learned a lot of tips and tricks on how to punch needling. I did a lot of research in regards to all the materials that I needed, and with my own trial and error, I've learned what works for me and what doesn't work for me. So let's start off with the first item that we need, and the most important item in my opinion, the actual punch needle. So this is the mina-carin punch needle, and this is the one that I use. So this is a punch needle kit that I purchased on Etsy. Kit brings the actual punch needle, it brings two additional needles, and then it brings 2 threaders. There's only one in here because I've already used the other one, but it brings 2 additional threaders, and they sell them on Etsy. There are tons of needles out there that you can purchase. There's so many different brands that exist. However, with the type of punch needling that I do, for example, creating mug rugs, keychains, or something of smaller detail, I use this needle. This needle does come with a small, medium, and large needle. I do use the large needle, and it does not specify how many millimeters the needle is. However, I think I've measured it, and I think it's a 2mm needle that I'm using. So I will post everything down below in the description of all the materials that I have and where you can purchase. I did want to note that you want to be careful where you are buying your needle. I recommend that you buy your needle on Etsy. Make sure that you're purchasing a needle that says mina-carin, if this is the one that you want, because there are a bunch of needles out there that are not the right ones, or there's a lot of knockoffs to this one, and they don't work as well. I've seen a ton of these on Amazon that are not mina-carin, and they have not so good views and they don't work as well. So I highly suggest that you get yours from Etsy. When I purchased this one, so I've already purchased 3 needles, and I've purchased from a seller from Turkey. It is a little far away, and I know it can be a little worrisome for some of you to have to order something that's so far away, because you're afraid that it can get stuck in the mail or just not get to your house. I was too when I first ordered my first needle, but I went ahead and ordered it anyways. It was like a total of $20 with the needle and the shipping cost, and it got to my house in about a week. So I've ordered from this seller 3 times already. I cannot remember the name of the seller, but there's a couple of sellers out there that are from Turkey that do sell the needle. So this is the needle, and it will say mina-carin on there. So make sure that the needle that you buy does have the name brand on there, and it also will have the measurements on the other side. So next on our materials list are needle threaders, and these are our threaders. They're very thin, so I'm not sure if you can see them well. The threaders are here. These are the threaders that you are going to use in order to be able to put in your thread into your needle that you'll be using. If you do purchase a mina-carin kit like you saw previously, that kit does bring 2 threaders. However, you are going to want to have some backups, because they can rip. These are very, very thin needles, if you can tell, and they usually tend to break at the tip. At least for me, they do. They'll break at the tip a little bit because you pull, and from so much pulling of bringing the thread through the needle, it'll just, break apart. Can purchase these on Amazon. I have two different type here. So I've purchased these types. So this one is a little more thicker at the top, plastic, and then this one just has like a lighter, it's like almost like a little thin plastic sheet. The kit does bring like the metal one, so this one right here, and it brings two of those. But if you want backups, you can definitely order them on Amazon. There's tons of different ones on Amazon, so don't be afraid to pick whichever. I do have two different kind here, and you can just pick any of those two and purchase. I will be also linking it in the description below so that you can have somewhere to access. So the next thing that we use are called frames and or hoops. Depending on which route you want to go, you can use either a hoop or a frame. I personally prefer a frame. It is easier for me to work on a frame because it is a lot thicker and I can hold on to it, and it just feels like I have much more control. This is the punch needle frame. This is a 9x9 punch needle frame, and this is the hoop. This is the hoop that you can also use to punch needle. So this is the frame, and then these are called grippers. I want to show you what it's like. These are actual like needles, and this is very, very, very sharp. And you want to be very careful when you're handling this type of frame because it will cut you. It has cut me several times. I've actually gotten a very, very, very deep cut on my hands using this. So you want to be very careful when you're using this type of frame. When I did purchase the frame, it did not come like this assembled. I did have to assemble it. It came in 4 pieces. So the grippers already came attached to the wood, but it did come apart, so I just had to screw it on. That's why it has like the numbers on here, because the instructions showed you how to do it, and then we just screwed it on. So these are the screws. It came with the screws and everything. If you do decide on using a punch needle frame, I highly recommend, if not must needed, you get yourself a frame cover. So it's something like this. It looks like a giant scrunchie, and there's so many cute designs. Um, so this one is a pink one, and it has like cute little strawberries. I also got this on Amazon. There's so many other frame covers on Amazon that you can buy. I also have this frame cover as well. This is cute little teddy bears. If you want to see the cute little design. So I highly recommend that you guys get yourself some frame covers if you are going to use a frame. So this is what the frame looks like with a cover on. And as you can see, it has protected all the edges of the frame. If you do press hard enough, like the needles will slip through a little bit, so you do want to be careful. But like you're not going to be swinging this frame around, you know, hitting yourself with it or something. It's going to be pretty still, but you can still feel the needles a little bit if you push hard enough. But obviously when you are doing the project, like there's going to be another fabric there that will be on top of the needles, where it will be an extra protection to the frame side. So when you do the cover, it's just an additional protection that I highly recommend, and it makes it look super cute. Like who doesn't want a cute little frame? It's so aesthetically pleasing. So I did want to show you what the frame would look like once the whole fabric is on there and it has the frame cover. This one is 15 times 15. This is a much bigger frame. Beginning, I suggest that you start off with something little like the one I showed you, but you can go into something big. I did buy a big one from the beginning because I'm a very impatient person, and I just like to buy everything all at once because I kind of knew that I was going to be doing this for a while. So now moving on to the fabric. So the type of fabric that I use is the muslin medium weight fabric, and this is the fabric that I use. So let's open it a little bit so you could see. This is what it looks like. Okay. It is a little see-through, which is good because we want it to be a little see-through so that when we are drawing our picture onto the fabric, we can see it from behind because we will be tracing our images, or if you'd like to freehand your image, you can as well. I do purchase my fabric on Amazon. You can get a whole sheet of this, so it's very large. So if I open some of this up, you can see already how big it is, and it's so much more bigger than this. And it's relatively inexpensive. It's about, I'd say, like $12 to $15, or maybe less, for this whole sheet. And you can get several frames out of this. So if you're starting off with the little frame, you can probably get like 20 frames out of this, if not more. Since I've started punch needling, I probably have only purchased muslin fabric twice. So this is the second batch that I've bought. And it works very well with the needle that I work with. So fabric is one of those things that it all depends on the needle that you're going to be working with. For me, this has worked. So the needle tension going into the fabric, perfect. And then the yarn will stay and will not fall off. When I did first start, I had purchased monk's cloth because a lot of the videos or a lot of places that I did research recommended monk's cloth, which they do use. However, the type of needle that I had purchased was not working well with the monk's cloth because, oh my gosh, I cannot say that word. That word. Whoa, I can't even talk today. The needle that I was trying to use, which is the mina-carin, with the monk's cloth, was not working well because my needle was too thin. Weaving within the fabric of the monk's cloth is a lot bigger. So when I was going to punch needle into the monk's cloth, my stitch would not stay in. So my loop of my yarn would just slip out and there was no tensions, because in order for your yarn to stay in the fabric and not come out when you pull back up, there needs to be a tension to hold it together. And with the monk's cloth and the type of needle that I was using, it was too small. There was no tension. It was just slipping out because the weaving of the fabric was way too large for my needle. All right, my lovelies, let's move on to the yarn. So there's so much yarn out there, guys. Like, so much yarn that you can look at, and so much yarn that exists. You walk into a store and it's almost like sometimes overwhelming to see how much yarn exists. However, I don't know why it is so hard to find yarn for this type of needle. In my opinion, it has been so hard to find yarn for this type of needle because it's so fine and it's not a common type of yarn that is used. A lot of people use like size 4 yarns. Those are the most common type sizes of yarns. However, the type of yarn that you're going to be using for punch needling, specifically using this type of needle, is either size 2, or also known as baby or sport yarn, and you'll be using size 3, which is called light yarn. And finding those in stores was kind of hard for me. Where I was lucky to find a bunch was in Joann's Fabrics. However, we all know Joann's is closing, so at this point you might not even be able to find any in Joann's. And in the future, we will have no Joann's here. And in Michael's, I could not find any in Michael's. So it was so hard to find yarn at the beginning. I did purchase some on Amazon. And you do want to be mindful when you do purchase some yarn on Amazon, because you want to make sure that it's either a size 2 or size 3 yarn. You want to read the reviews and make sure that somewhere it confirms that it's that size, because sometimes you will purchase some yarn and it is not the right size, or it says it's size 3 and it just does not work well in the needle. Because most of the 3s that I have bought have fit well in the needle, but there are some size 3s that are way too big and it does not let the yarn flow nicely in the needle, and it just is a mess. It does not come out, and all you do is a bunch of holes in your fabric, and it's not a smooth ride. And the most important thing in punch needling is making sure that there is no tension in your needle. Sometimes there's going to be a slight tension if you're using a size 3, but it will still flow. It all depends on the type of yarn you're using. I tend to use cotton. So this is some of the yarn that I use. If you see how small this type of yarn looks like compared to like the other yarns that they sell at the store, which are a lot bigger. I think they're like the 4-ply. They're the size 4, and they're just come in a big thing, and they're more fluffier. Those, even though it looks like it might fit in your needle, it will not fit in your needle. Or sometimes it will fit into the needle, but when you go to punch needle, the yarn will not flow nicely, and it just will not stay in the fabric, and it'll just be a huge mess. I use the 24/7 Cotton DK line brand yarn, so is this one. And this is a size 3. So you want to pay attention to this part of the yarn. You will read here, and here it will tell you what sizes are the yarn. This is a size 3, and it's relatively thin. So this works perfect. And there are some yarns that will say that they're 3, but they're a lot thicker. So for example, I purchased this Premium Yarn KC Knit and Crochet, this one. And it does say that is a 3, if you can see there. However, it does not fit in my yarn. So if you've noticed that this is a lot more fluffier than these, just a tad bit, it did not fit in my needle, and there was just way too much tension, and it did not let the yarn flow nicely so that you can create your nice loops into your fabric. So I'd say that buying yarn was probably the most trickiest part for me, because there was tons of yarns that I bought that worked, and then there was quite a few that did not work. And then I never even got to return. Please remember that this is always trial and error. Every time you're starting any new project, it's very much trial and error. Even if you've watched videos of people who have done it and tell you what products they use, sometimes products work for others that don't work for you. So this is a very trial and error craft. This is something that you're going to have to build to and learn with time. It's not something that you really get right off the bat like any other craft. So it does take time. It takes a little patience, but you got this. I know you do. Of course, you're going to need a pair of scissors, because you'll be cutting yarn, you'll be cutting fabric, you'll be cutting your image out to trace it. So this is essential meanwhile you are making the project, and at the end when you're finishing off the project. Then you need your image that you are going to be tracing and punch needling. This is one of my stencils to the Daisy mug rug that I've made, and you need a pencil. I use a mechanical pencil, but you can use a pen, you can use a color pencil, whichever you prefer. I recommend that you get a pencil or a mechanical pencil. I did want to talk about a little bit of your images. They do sell a bunch of different stencils on Etsy that you can purchase. You can go onto Etsy and type in whichever type of stencil you want. Daisy punch needle template. These are stencils or templates. And there's so many different stencils or templates out there that you can choose from and purchase from people who have already created them and just uploaded them, and you can purchase, which saves you a headache of you trying to figure out how to get it yourself. Or, some people, if they like to doodle, they'll like doodle their own image, maybe like on an iPad or on their computer, and they will print out their own image, and you just cut it up. And you can also Google a lot of different free SVGs that exist on the internet. If you Google free SVGs or free Daisy SVG, for example, you can see what comes up, choose the image, and then you can copy and paste it onto a program. There's so many templates out there that you can choose from. We need a little water break because that was a lot of talking. So if you're going to be making mug rugs or car coasters like these, and this is a car coaster, you do need to finish off the project. This is what it's going to look like. So we're going to bring out the beautiful frame again. But once your frame is completed, this is the end result. This is the part that you're going to punch needle in. And it looks like this. It looks very rough if you can't tell. And then the finished side would be on the other side, which is the more hollow, the back part of it. And these are the finished punch needle mug rugs. Rough side has to be secured to make sure that the loops that you put in are not going to come out when you're cutting it and you're going to finish it off. To use in order to add a layer of protection to the back of my designs and making sure that it's locked in, it is not going to come out or get undone. I like to use Mod Podge. So this is just Mod Podge, the matte kind. I mean, you can, I don't think it matters which one that you pick. So whichever Mod Podge you are used to using, you can use. But this is just the matte Mod Podge. And it's just a water-based glue, sealer, and finish. I like to add this to the back, and I'll use this type of brush. You can use any type of brush, a paintbrush, a spatula. I use this because this is what I have, and I have not gotten my hands on a little mini spatulas. The spatulas that they use to like cover up holes with plaster, those spatulas you can use, and you can use like a mini one if you're going to be doing small designs. But you'll use this simple brush too. This works just as well, and this is what I've been using the entire time that I started this. Next, after we seal our project, we are going to need a glue gun. So I have my little handy dandy glue gun, and it's pink because you know me, I love pink. This is a much larger glue gun. There are smaller ones, so if you do find a smaller one, I suggest that you use a smaller glue gun, especially if you're new to using glue guns, because the larger ones do use like the thicker glue stick, and when you press it, it tends to come out a lot more. So if you're newer to glue guns, you just want a smaller one so that you can have much more control on the amount of glue that's coming out. You know, you just don't want to risk getting glue everywhere or clumping too much glue on the project. So, and then last but not least, finish off your entire project. If you're going to be doing mug rugs or anything that just needs a back base, you're going to need felt. This is the type of felt that I have. I just ordered a large amount of felt on Amazon, and this is what I got. This is by the yard. This is a lot thinner. This is a 1.2 millimeter. So let me just show you how thin it is. So it's relatively thin. Out of the felt that you can find at the craft stores, like in Michael's, for example, they are a little bit more thicker, but you can absolutely use those felts as well. All right, my lovelies. So we have reached the end of this video. Thank you so much for being here and spending some time with me and learning a little bit about punch needling and what you need in order to start. I will be creating the next video to this on how to punch needles. So we will then be using all the materials that we have gathered in order to start creating our first project. I very much appreciate you being here. Please, please, please give a thumbs up, like to this video, and if you loved my video, please subscribe. Please comment below if you've made it this far. Comment below a pink heart or bow because I love pink. And thank you so much for being here. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment down below and I will do my best into answering as many questions as I have. Please remember that I will be linking all the items that we talked about today in the description below. I hope that this video provides a foundation for you in order to start punch needling. And then I hope in the next video when I show you how to punch needling or what it actually looks like in the process, that you gain much more knowledge and you feel much more ready and confident in punch needling. So thank you so much, my loves, and I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. Mwah. Bye.